morning, everyone. So to start, as a reminder that when you guys are going through the project, remember that all the projects you need to complete are in your account. And these projects are based on all the skills you need to have to become a cloud engineer. So to become a cloud engineer, we've talked about that some of the skills you need is just understanding AWS services, how to deploy applications in AWS, using some of their core services. And once you learn that, you also need to understand how to automate the deployment of application in AWS. So that is why we are doing hands-on projects on tools like Terraform, Docker, Ansible, and CI/CD. So basically, once you start, you should be going through each of these courses that are listed in your account from top to bottom. For every course you complete, each course is an hands-on project on a skill you need to learn. Once you complete a course, there will be a corresponding assignment for that course. So what I'm trying to say is you should be completing the projects first to understand how to deploy the application or whatever we are covering in that project so you can get the knowledge. Then once you have completed the project, you can now work on the assignment to test your knowledge. So the project you'll follow along with whatever I am doing on the screen. Then when you work on the assignment, that is an opportunity for yourself to see what you've learned from completing that project and see if you can deploy the application that I've given you in the assignment on your own. So that's how the program is set up. You work on the projects, then you work on the assignment after you've completed the project. So here, the projects that are listed in your account are meant to build your knowledge as you go. So don't skip any of this project to jump to, for example, here, because you want to learn Terraform, you jump to Terraform. To get the best out of the program and to be able to build your knowledge as you go, start at the very first project. Even if it's something you feel you understand, then that just means that you'll be able to complete this project very fast. So start at the first project at the top and walk through the projects from top to bottom. When you've completed a project in your account, to get the assignment, remember you have to go to our Slack channel. So this is our Slack channel. Once you are in the channel, click on this canvas icon here. Once you come to the Slack channel, it will look like this. Click on this canvas icon. Here, you will see all the important links. And you can see we have assignment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right now we are on 6, but I'm still going to add the other assignments that you guys need to complete. So this is where you will find the assignment for each of the projects in your account. So assignment 1 will correspond with a project that is in this course. Then assignment 2 corresponds with this project. There is no project for the WordPress website because the WordPress website and the dynamic website, they are pretty much the same. So here we just learn how to deploy a WordPress application, a WordPress website in AWS, and also a dynamic application in AWS. So they are the same. For these two projects in your account, you also have a corresponding assignment. So these projects corresponds with assignment 3 in your account, but you'll be able to figure it out as you go. But the main thing I'm trying to say is complete the project first, then test your knowledge by doing the assignment. To also help you get in the flow of what a day-to-day is like for a cloud engineer, when you are working on your assignment, create a task for it on the Jira board. This is just to get you in the habit of creating a ticket, because once you start working, you will be responsible for creating your ticket. And sometimes they bring this up during an interview. Funny enough, when I did my interview for the first time, when I was trying to transition into cloud way back when, I didn't even know what Jira is or what Agile methodology is. That is why we are covering it now. So at the least, you know what it is. But when you are completing your assignment, create your task here. And to create your task is simple. Just click create here and enter your details. Once you create your ticket, it will show up here under to do. Then once you start working on it, you can drag it to in progress. And once you have completed, you want me to review it, you can drag it in reviews. That's pretty much how it works. Once you start working, you'll be responsible for creating your own ticket. So it's better to get in a habit of doing that now. That is why we are using Jira. Then to track your progress, this is where we are tracking our progress in this Excel sheet. That is it for reminder for how you should be working through your projects. Then for those that have their assignment in review, I've reviewed it and moved it to done. Then I've also given you credit on the Excel sheet that you've completed the assignment. I see some of you guys are filling it once you complete the assignment. That is fine. And if you haven't filled it out, for example, let's say you completed assignment 3 and you haven't marked it as completed, then I will mark it for you. So whoever gets to it first, if you get to it first, that's fine. That is it for this. So someone asked that I should explain about Agile methodology and Slack. Okay, so just basically, Agile methodology is the process that your company will use to complete. So let's say your company wants to build an application and they have assembled the team of engineers that would build that application, right? In order to have structure, Agile methodology is what they use. And to explain it in a simple way, it is just a way of organizing all the things you guys need to do to be able to complete that project. Let's say for a particular project, you have to build a VPC, EC2, RDS, and all these things. So what they will do is they will identify all the things you guys need to do. All those things that you guys need to do are what you guys are creating here as tasks. So once they identify all the things you guys need to do to complete that application, then they will assign each of those things to the engineers that are assigned to that project. So let's say we've identified that we need to create a VPC, EC2, NAT gateway, and all those things. All the tickets for those things you guys need to complete will be on the Jira board. Then you as the engineer on the team, they will assign it to you. And another thing is they work in what we call sprint. Sprint is how long it would take for you to complete what task they assign to you. Well, it's not how long it would take for you to complete the task that is assigned to you because you can complete more tasks in a sprint. But sprint is just, they measure it in 2 weeks. So everyone's sprint that I've seen is in 2 weeks. So they will say for these 2 weeks, we are going to assign the task, create a VPC, EC2, and RDS to you. You have to get them done in this sprint, and the sprint will be 2 weeks. So at the end of the 2 weeks, they will assign new set of tasks to you, and you keep working on it like that. So that's how the sprint works. So let's say in a sprint, they assign a task to you, and the task is to build the VPC, create the security group, and RDS. Then those will show up in like the tickets you are seeing here. Then you just work on them. Once you work on them, you move it to review the same thing you are doing here. So that's pretty much the Agile methodology. It is a way that companies use to, how do I say, is a way that companies use to assign works to the engineer. So that way you can understand who's working on what, and you can also have structure on how long it would take to complete the work. So that's all an Agile methodology is. So they don't just assign things randomly. Everything will be planned. All the things you guys need to do will be listed on the Jira board. Then they'll just assign it to you as they go. So once you complete one task, they will assign another task to you, and that's how it works. Sometimes you guys will have a Scrum Master that creates our ticket. I've worked on a project before where there's a Scrum Master that creates the tickets. So sometimes you have a Scrum Master that creates the ticket, and most times on other projects that I've worked on, you will create the ticket yourself. So that is pretty much the Agile methodology. And you can look it up online too. You'll get a more detailed explanation than the way I explain it. But in a simple way, it is just a process that a company uses to complete the deployment of an application. So, and Slack is nothing more than a messaging app that your team will use to communicate. So here we are using Slack. One thing I found is that companies that has Google as their emailing service, they use Slack. I've always seen that. And companies that use Outlook as their email service, they use Microsoft Teams. So Slack is nothing more than a messaging app. I mean, it does more. You can Zoom, just the same way we are having our meeting on Zoom, we can actually have a meeting on Slack too. And I'm not sure if you guys know this, but let's say Hunter is here and I want to meet with her. You guys see all these buttons here. You can send audio recording, which you guys have seen me send audio recording to you guys. Sometimes when you have questions, it is much easier for me to answer it that way. So I'll send audio recording. Sometimes when you are having like a Zoom session, in Slack, it is called huddle. So when you are having an huddle session, you can share screen with each other. The same thing you can do on Zoom, you can do on Slack. Let's say I want to start a huddle with Hunter, but if you want to start huddle with anyone on Slack, all you have to do is select their name and click this headphone thing here. and you can see that I start the huddle. She will get a notification, and once she joins, then I can pretty much have a huddle session with her. And if I want to share my screen, I can share my screen and we can work on whatever we are working on. So you can also do that on Slack too. That's one of the benefits of using Slack. So Slack is nothing more than just a messaging app that your team will use to communicate with each other. So at work, there's a good chance your team will use Slack, and there's also a good chance your team will use other messaging app. The most common one that I've seen is Slack, Microsoft Teams, and WebEx. Those are the ones that I've seen. Okay. Slack has a documentation. You have to go to their documentation and see how their API, how to set their API up and use it. But at work, you won't have to use anything with Slack API, unless if you are trying to automate how, I know sometimes when companies have an application, maybe they want certain messages to be sent through Slack to the engineer, then they will integrate the Slack API into their application deployment. You can do that, but you would have to go to the Slack documentation and see how to set it up. For almost every service that is out there, like Google, you guys know, for services like Google, Amazon, and YouTube, any of those, Spotify, any of those services, they have APIs that you can call to automate different things. So yes, you would have to go to their documentation and see it. So for example, if you go on Google and search Slack. So you say Slack API developer docs, you would have to go through their documentation and see how to set it up. So everything will be here. Yeah. But if you want to work with that, you can work with it. I know I've worked with it before. So when I wrote the Python script that would remove certain people from Slack, that is how I did it. I referenced their API, but it's been a while since I did it. For anything you are trying to do, you would have to reference the documentation. You are not expected to just know everything, especially if you haven't worked with it before. So you can see this is the API documentation getting started. So if I was working with it, this is what I would do. I'll start with the getting started. I will read how to install, because you see you first have to install the Slack CLI. Then once you do that, authorize the CLI. Then once you do that, so in Slack, that is how it works. You have to create an app that allows you to do. App is like how you grant Slack permission to do stuff. Then once you do that, then you can start running it. So here you can see they have the documentation on how to do that.
Thank you, Aziz.
No problem. Now someone asked, is it possible that GitHub can be configured or integrated to close the tickets on Jira when a task has been completed? I'm sure there is a way to connect it to. So when your task is done, I'm assuming what you are thinking about is maybe when you merge your pull request and everything is done, then it automatically knows that your task is done and completed. But sometimes at work, right? One of the things you guys will have to determine at work is, what is the benefit of doing something? Does it make our work much efficient? And what does it cost to deploy this setting that allows us to do this? So I haven't seen that integrated at work. So usually every engineer closes their own Jira ticket once they are done. So, but if you're asking if that is something that can be done, I'm sure it can be, but I don't know how, because I haven't actually seen it I've not seen anyone use it before. The most I've seen is when you create your pull request and it gets approved, then you comment something on it, then in GitHub, your Terraform code will be applied. And this is if you are working in Terraform, your Terraform code will be applied. And once your Terraform code is applied, the pull request will be 100% merged into the main branch, and it will close that pull request for you. It will close that branch for you. That's the most I've seen. But for your question, it can be done, but I don't know how to do it, but I'm sure it can be done. Okay. So for the demo that I want to show you guys today, I created a template for you guys to troubleshoot the issues you may be facing when you are working on your project. So every time I troubleshoot with everyone, the main issue that I see most of the time when I'm troubleshooting with you is your VPC and your security groups. So if you are trying to deploy your application, or you've deployed your application and you are getting 502 error, or you are running your command from your servers and your commands are not working as expected, most likely you have an issue with your VPC configuration, which is 95% of the time, every time I troubleshoot with you guys, that's what I always see. So I'll start by saying the very first step to be able to deploy an application in the cloud is to understand how to build a VPC. You need to understand how to build a VPC from beginning to end. And I don't mean you have to understand how to build everything that has to do with VPC in the VPC console, but understanding how to build a VPC with public and private subnets and setting up your route tables to make a subnet public and to make a subnet private. At the least, you need to understand how to do that. So when I was learning, I practiced building a VPC over and over and over and over and over again. That is why in our assignment, I always tell you guys to delete the VPC at the end. And in the next project, it is the same VPC we are using, but so that you get in the habit, so that you understand how to build a VPC. That is why we deleted at the end of the previous project and build it again in the new project. Just to show you guys, I've showed you guys this before. I'm not sure if everyone saw it. I don't use the notes anymore because it's been a while since I built a VPC. I'll show you just a second.
I'm sorry, Aziz. I think somebody's trying to get.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, he's having troubles with
Okay. I don't see anyone.
Yeah, he sent a message on Slack.
Tell him to use the link in the link is in the canvas. So it's probably, maybe his link is outdated.
The one I think the one is starting.
Just a second. Okay, I thought Aaron was able to join. Aaron's in the meeting. Anyway, who's trying to join? Because the person that has the message on Slack, I see him here. Or is he? Yeah, I'll post the link there.
I posted the link if they just click on it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's the same link, so it should work. Okay. So when I was building VPC, when I was learning how to build VPC, this is the note I created for myself. So I'll advise you create your notes, or you can use this note. Anytime you are building a VPC, go through this notes one by one. So select your region, create your VPC. Then once you've created your VPC, enable the DNS hostname. So whatever you did to create your VPC, you need to document it, and you should reference it every time you create a VPC until you have understand how to create a VPC. That is very important. That will also save you a lot of time from troubleshooting when you go and deploy your application, because majority of the issue you have most of the time is in how your VPC is configured. I'll put this notes in the Slack channel for you guys, but it is very important for you to understand how to create a VPC. So when you are working on your project, let's say you run into an issue when you are trying to deploy your application, and tell him he has to sign into his Zoom account before he can join. That's what the message is saying. He has to sign in first. Okay. So I lost my train of thought. So understanding how to create a VPC is very important. But when you guys are working on your project and you run into an issue, let's say you are trying to deploy an application, and somehow you are running into an issue, right? What I did is I created a CloudFormation template that will create your VPC for you, and would also create some of the things in the VPC that you will need. So it will create your EC2 Instance Connect endpoint, and it would also create your security groups. It will create your EC2 Instance Connect endpoint security groups, and in the template, I also add RDS instance, because since RDS instance takes time to create, I just add it as part of the template. So once it has created those things for you, you can now test your application deployment in it. That way, if you created your own VPC and you are trying to test in it, and somehow your deployment is not working properly, use my CloudFormation template to deploy the application. Use my CloudFormation template to deploy your VPC. And like I said, that would create your VPC with the public and private subnets in the two availability zone. It would create an EC2 Instance Connect endpoint for you. And it would also create all the security groups we've been using to deploy our dynamic application. And I also add an RDS instance in it. So it will create these things for you. Then you can focus on trying to deploy your application. And if and pretty much once you start deploying your application in it and you run your command, if it works, then you know there's an issue with the VPC you built. This is the method that I've been using to troubleshoot with a lot of people, because sometimes when I try to review your VPC, sometimes it's even hard to see what went wrong in it. And when I deploy a separate VPC parallel to it and we try to deploy in that, it always works. So if you are running into those issues, I will advise you use this template, and I'll provide it to you guys today. So this is also an opportunity to just see how CloudFormation works. So CloudFormation is AWS version of Terraform. So you know how Terraform is infrastructure as code. CloudFormation is AWS infrastructure as code service. And let me show you the template. I'm going to open it. So this is the CloudFormation template, and I've pretty much add all the resources to it. It should work in your account the same way it will work in my account, and it should work in every region. So this is the template. It's pretty long, and this template will create the resources on this reference architecture for you without your servers and application load balancer, but it will create your VPC, your EC2 Instance Connect endpoint, your security groups, and I also add RDS into it. But if you want to use this to create your VPC, but you don't want the template to create the RDS instance, you can just remove the RDS resource from the template before you deploy it. This is the template, and here, this is where I'm creating the security group, and this is where I'm creating this is the security groups, and this is where I'm creating the database. So remember what I said, if you don't want to create an RDS database, when you are deploying the template, you can just comment this resource out. The one that says RDS resource, you can comment it out and it would not create the RDS instance for you. Okay, so basically this is the template, and to use it is very simple. Someone said, how do I manage my time to create all these things? One thing I want to say is when you are going through your cloud journey, right? As you guys know, I always say dedicate at least a minimum to 1 to 2 hours a day. Monday to Saturday, you can take Sundays off, right? But sometimes when you get in the habit of working on these things, you will spend more time on it. But at the base, I always say dedicate 2 hours. So for me, a lot of the stuff I do when I prepare documentations for you guys, or these files like this, I mostly do them at night. So I still have a 9 to 5 job. I work 8:30 to about 6 p.m. Then I rest between 6 and 9 p.m. Usually those time I'll take a nap, go to the gym. Then after that, after I come back from the gym, is usually around 9:10. I may rest again. Then I literally work on these things between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. So that's how I work on it. Then on weekends, because I have more time, I'll work on it, right? So what I'm saying is you would be sacrificing something one way or the other, especially when you are at the stage where you are building your knowledge and you are trying to get to your goal. You would have to sacrifice something, and typically it would be your time. I don't know. I enjoy working on these things, so I don't mind staying up late to work on them. So to answer your question, yes, I work on most of these things at night, and I'm much of like a night person. So I work at night, then on weekends I work on it too. So that's when I get all this stuff done. Yes, I will add the template. I'm going to copy the template to Slack so you guys can download it once I've tested, and once we have tested together to make sure it works. I haven't tested yet, but we'll test it now and make sure it works. So this is the template that you can use to troubleshoot. Then to run this template, all you have to do is in the management console, type CloudFormation. Once you type CloudFormation in the search box, you will see it under services here, select it. Then in the CloudFormation dashboard, click create stack. Then here on this page, leave it on template is ready. Then under template source, you can either upload this template to an S3 bucket and copy the URL of the S3 bucket here, or you can upload the template directly from your computer. That is what this means. So I'll select this option. Then it would ask you to choose the file. So click choose file and browse to the directory on your computer where you save the template. This is the template on my computer. I'm going to click it and click open. Then once you open it, click next. On this page, you are going to specify your stack details. Here, when you run a CloudFormation template to create resources in AWS, it is called a stack. So whatever resources you created in that template is called a stack. So that's what this means. So here they are just asking you to give that stack a name. You can call it any name. So I'll call it test stack. You don't have to put stack there. You can even just call it test. It would work. But the main thing you want to make sure is that you are following whatever the naming convention is. Go ahead, Ahmed.
Thank you. So with this CloudFormation template, when is it necessary to use this or to use the Terraform one? Which one do you think is necessary to use at the time? I know the Terraform one has a lot of resources, but when is it best to use CloudFormation template and the Terraform?
So the reason why I am covering this demo and showing you guys this CloudFormation template is because when you guys start at the very first project and you are running into the issues of installing your application, right? I want this to be something you can use to spin up another VPC with the routing set up correctly and the security group set up correctly and test there. And if everything works in that VPC, then you know there's an issue with the VPC you created. And if everything fails in this one too, then you know the issue might be with the command you are running. So since Terraform requires you to have some prior knowledge and you have to install Terraform on your computer, in the beginning stage when you are working on the EC2 projects, in the beginning stages when you are working on the EC2 projects, you don't necessarily have information or knowledge on how to use infrastructure as code, whether it is Terraform or CloudFormation. But by me showing you this demo, at the least, you can use this template to spin up a stack that will create your VPC and you can test in there. So basically, this template, anyone can use it at any time because in CloudFormation, it does not require you to set up anything on your computer. You pretty much upload your template, the same thing I'm doing here, and run your stack. Everything that needs to be created is already on the template that I created for you guys. So all you are doing here is running this template. Then that will spin up your environment. Then you can do your testing. Once you are done, then you can delete your stack. Did I answer your question?
Yes. I was sending a message in the chat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the point of me showing you this CloudFormation template and creating it is so at any point while you are working on the projects we did in the management console, if you run into any issue, then you can use this template to create your network part of that project, which is your VPC, security groups, EC2 Instance Connect endpoint, then use that VPC to test your deployment. Okay. So once you enter your stack name, once you enter your stack name, here are the perimeters that I specified in the template. You don't have to do anything here. You can see here, I have the perimeter for VPC CIDR and the public subnets and the private subnet CIDR block. If you want to change them, you can change them here, but by default, I've already put the value in there, so you don't have to change anything here. For the security group we will create, remember when we create our SSH security group, we need to limit the source of that. We need to limit the source of that security group to our IP address. So for this SSH location, this is referring to your IP address that you will limit your SSH source to. So here you can update this value to your IP address. And remember to get your IP address, go to the management console, type EC2, select EC2 under services and click launch instance. Then you give your instance, you don't even have to give your instance a name. So once you launch your instance, scroll down here under network settings, click edit, then pretend as if you are creating a security group. So here, create security group and change it to SSH. Then under source type, if you select this drop down and select my IP, it will show you your IP address here. So you can copy this and paste it here. So that is what I have there. Make sure you always have the /32 at the end. Then here, these are some of the database perimeter. So this is where you enter the database name. This is the name of your RDS instance, not your database name, the name of your RDS instance. So that is what we call the RDS instance identifier. You enter the name, then you can enter your database name here, username and password. I've entered some default values here, and I'll show you how to see them in the console. You can see this value For example, the database user and password. There's something I did on the template to hide it, but on the template, you can see what the value is. So if you come to the template and I go to where I specified the RDS perimeter, you can see here, database username, you can see the default value I gave it, and database password, you can also see it here. So you can see those values on the template itself. And I'll also show you how to see them in the management console once we have deployed our CloudFormation stack. So for the default value you see here, when you are running this template, you don't have to change anything here because everything will work in your account exact same way. All you need to do is enter your stack name, then update your SSH location. Even if you don't want to update it here every single time you deploy your stack, once you download this template, get your IP, and on the template, you can update it under this perimeter here that says SSH location. And you can see this default, this is where you paste it. So whatever you specify under default is what is showing up here. So remember when you are running this stack, yes, sure.
So the SSH, because I remember the when we were doing the ICE connect endpoint, another one is limited to VPC side of the correct.
Yeah.
So is that one included? Did you include it in the platform?
Yes.
So which one are you included?
Yes, it is. So it is included on the CloudFormation template. If I scroll to the security group section, I have the AICE here. That is here, and the SSH. So I'm creating the two type of security group just for you. So whether you prefer to use your endpoint or you prefer to use your SSH. Okay. So I've just add those two security groups. So when you are launching your resources, you can pick whichever one you want to use. Yeah. Okay. So when you are launching this template, the main thing you have to enter is your stack name and update your SSH location, which is your IP address, right? Once you've done that, click next. Then on this page, we have some configuration option. You don't have to do anything here. Under this stack failure option, what this means is when we use this template to start creating resources in our AWS account, if CloudFormation run into any issues while it is creating the resources, the rollback or stack resources means that, let's say it has created VPC EC2, then when it went to create another resource, it ran into an issue. What it would do is it would remove all the other resources it created. The other option is, let's say it has created some resources like VPC EC2, then when it goes to create RDS, for example, if it runs into an issue, it will just stop creating the RDS instance, but it will leave all the other resources that it has already created. This option is good for when you are troubleshooting. So let's say when it was creating the next resource, it ran into an issue, it will stop there. Then you can look at the error message that will allow you to troubleshoot whatever issue you are facing. So I will select this option to leave it on. I will select this option to not remove all the other resources so I can pinpoint exactly where my stack creation is failing. So that's where I will select this option, but you can pick either one. It doesn't matter. Once you've selected that, then scroll down and click next. And here is just a review page. Scroll down here and click submit. Then CloudFormation will start to create all the resources in your AWS account based on what I've specified in the template. And remember, in the template, what I said is this template will create your VPC with public and private subnets in the two availability zone. It will create an RDS instance, and it will create an EC2 instance connect endpoint. It will create an EC2 instance connect endpoint and security group. So basically all the things you need to have in your VPC will be configured. Your security groups will be created for you and your endpoint will be created for you. As an addition, I just add the RDS instance in it because that always takes time. And to make the troubleshooting process faster, I just add the RDS into the template. So you can create the RDS, then you can just launch your EC2 instance, SSH into it, run your command and see if the issue you are facing in your own VPC, you are also facing it in this one. So it is creating the stack now. Under events, this is where you can track. So you can see here where it says stacks. Every stack you create, they will show up here. If you select a stack, right, under events, this is where you will see the events of what is going on. This means that this is the event of what CloudFormation is currently creating in your account. You can see here it is creating the database instance. Here it says create in progress. If you click refresh here, this will keep updating. And once it is, so what it will do, it will tell you create. What it will do is it will tell you create in progress. And once it is done, it will tell you create complete. So that's the main thing you will see. You can see here for the internet gateway attachment, it says create complete. If I look down, there was a place where it said create in progress. So here, what we want to do is we'll click, what we want to do here is we will refresh and wait for the CloudFormation stack to be done. Once the CloudFormation stack has created all the resources without any failure here, it will say create complete as well. So once your stack is complete, then you know all the resources are in your AWS account and you can start using them. Another thing I want to mention is that whatever region you are currently in, where you upload this template to in CloudFormation, that is the region it will create the resources in. So in CloudFormation, unlike Terraform where we specify US is one, in CloudFormation, whatever region you run the stack in, that's the region it is going to create the resource in. This template that I created for you guys is dynamic enough that you can run it in any region. So here, I'm going to refresh. It is creating the RDS instance, and that is usually what takes time. So I'm going to refresh here and wait. So to explain some of the other tabs here, at this stage when you are troubleshooting, you don't have to worry about it, right? But just to explain it why the resource is being created, just to explain it why the resources are being created is under resources. This is where you will find all the resources that I created from your CloudFormation template. So you can see the resource here, database security group. You can see the ID of the security group it created. And the status, it says create complete. You can see here, it is creating the RDS instance. This is the name I gave the RDS instance. And you can see the status is create in progress. Here, it is also creating the EC2 instance connect endpoint, and it is create in progress. So under resource, that's where you see that. Under outputs, this is where if we specified any outputs in our CloudFormation template, this is where you will see them. But I didn't specify any outputs here. So that's why you don't see anything here. Under perimeters, you saw all those perimeters that we specified in the beginning, things like our CIDR block, our RDS name. You can see all those here. The reason why this is commented out is because it is a secret. To get the value, you can find the value on the template itself, or when you are running your CloudFormation stack, you can change it. So that's what you see under perimeter. And if you come to templates, you can just see the same template you are using to create your stack, which is here. And under template, if you scroll down, you can see those values here. So your database user, name, and password. So that is under template, and that is pretty much it. The change set, there will be nothing here. And I'll come back to the events again. I'll click refresh here. It is still creating my resources. I'll just give it some time. It is done creating the RDS instance. It's probably the EC2 instance connect endpoint that is taking time. So if I go in my management console, before I do that, okay. So I've refreshed. You can see it says create complete under my stack. When you run this in your account, you shouldn't have any issue. It has created all the resources in my AWS account. So now if I go to the management console and I type, and I'm going to type RDS, for example, to check the RDS instance. You can see I have one RDS instance there. Then let me check the VPC and see under my VPC, I have two VPCs, my default VPC and the dev VPC. That is what my CloudFormation stack created. If I select your VPC, you can see the VPC here, subnets. You can also see the subnets here. To save you money, what I also did on this template is instead of creating two NAT gateways, I created just one NAT gateway, and we are using one NAT gateway to route all of our private subnets. So since we are just using it as troubleshooting, I want you to understand that for a production environment, it's better to create two NAT gateways in each availability zone. Once you just understand those concepts, right? When you are working on your project to save money, you don't necessarily have to use two NAT gateway. You can use one NAT gateway and attach that NAT gateway to one route table, then associate that route table with all your private subnets. That is one way you can save money. And that is what I did on this template. So these are my subnets. if you look at the route table, you can see I only have two route tables, the public route table and the private route table. And if you look at the private route table, the route is routing traffic through the NAT gateway, and the subnet association is associated with my private subnets. Let's check the security groups. So here we have the security groups. You can see the application load balancer security group. On that one, we open port 80 and port 443 from anywhere. Then on the database security group, we open port 3306 based on our database engine. And the source is our web server security group. Then on our EC2 Instance Connect endpoint, we don't have any inbound traffic, which is how we should configure it, but we have an outbound, and the source is going to be from our the source is going to be from our VPC, right? The reason why I was distracted is here I need to update the template for this. I believe this should be SSH. So here I'm just going to change it now. So this should be SSH from our VPC, and I'm going to save it, but I'll update it on the template. So that should be this one. And next I have the EC2. Next I have the SSH security group, where we have the outbound set to anywhere and the inbound set to SSH from our IP address. Then the last one, we have the web server security group. And these are the ports that are open: port 80, port 22. So I pretty much open the SSH to the EIC and SSH to the SSH security group based on whichever one you want to use. And that is pretty much it for the security group. Then let me check the EC2 Instance Connect endpoint. So I'll select the endpoint here. You can see the EC2 Instance Connect endpoint. If I check the security group, is here, and it is in the private app subnet EZ1. So that is everything. So if everything is working correctly, the next thing I'm going to do is test it. So I'm going to type EC2 here, select EC2 under services, and I'm going to launch an EC2 instance, and I'll give it a name. I'll say test EC2 EIC. So this is the EC2 I will try to connect to using the EC2 Instance Connect endpoint. So once you enter the name, we will select our AMI Amazon Linux 2023. Instance type is T2 Micro. Key pair, we don't need a key pair. Then under networking, I'll click edit. I'm going to select my dev VPC. Then for the subnet, I'm going to select my private app subnet EZ1. Then for security group, we are going to choose an existing security group. Select this drop down and select your SSH security group. Well, this is the one I'm using, the EC2 Instance Connect endpoint. We are going to select we are going to select the web server security group, sorry, because that's the one I'm using, the EC2 Instance Connect endpoint. So once you select that, you scroll down here. That's all we need to do, and click Launch Instance. I've launched the instance. I'm going to open the console, refresh, and I haven't tested this template just in case. So it is running. The next thing I'm going to do is copy my instance ID, then open PowerShell. I'm going to look for my command to SSH using the EC2 Instance Connect endpoint. This is it. I'm going to remove this and paste my instance ID and press enter. The first time you try to SSH into an instance, it would ask you this question. I'll type yes and press enter. And there you go. I can SSH into the EC2 instance using the EC2 Instance Connect endpoint. So now if I type sudo yum update -y, nothing to update. What is the command to install Apache? That's how you guys know I don't remember any of these commands, because there is nothing to update. I'm just testing some commands to make sure the EC2 has access to the world. So it's in a sudo yum update, sudo yum, is it sudo yum install http -y. I think this is it. Yeah. So you can see I can install packages on this EC2 instance, meaning that my VPC is set up correctly. My EC2 instance has access to the world, and I can install packages on it. So if you created your own VPC, when you are working on your project, you run into an issue. Most of the time when I troubleshoot with you guys, the issue is always with how you create your VPC, or there's an issue with your security group. So this is something you can spin to do your testing. Then let's launch another EC2 instance and see if we want to SSH into that EC2 instance, how we would do it. So we can, if it would work. So I'll launch another EC2 instance, EC2. Then I'm going to leave it on Amazon Linux 2023, instance type T2 micro, key pair. I'll select the key pair that I have on my computer. Then remember, if you guys, by now, you guys know about key pair. So you have a key pair on your computer that you use to SSH. And if you don't have a key pair, you can create a new key pair here by selecting this, enter a name. I say test key. Then key pair type, you can either use RSA or this ED 25519. This is more of like the new version of the key pair that has like a much complex encryption. And this, the RSA is the previous one we are using. Any of this works. So you can leave it on the RSA. And remember, when you are selecting your private key file, if you are using a Mac computer or you want to use PowerShell to SSH into your EC2 instance, that is when you use PEM. But if you want to use PuTTY, and PuTTY only works on a Windows computer, then that's when you select PPK. Since I'm using PowerShell, I'll select PEM and I'll click Create Key Pair. So when you create a key pair, two keys are always generated, a public key and a private key. Always remember this, the public key is what is in your management console, and that is the key we just add to the EC2 instance here. The private key is the key that was downloaded to your computer when you created that key pair. And usually it would download it in your downloads folder. You can see it here in my downloads folder. This is the key you will use to SSH into your EC2 instance. So once we've selected our key pair, on that network, we'll click edit and we'll select our VPC. And for subnets, we are going to select public subnet AZ1. Remember, one of the advantages of using the EC2 Instance Connect endpoint is that it allows us to SSH directly into an EC2 instance in our private subnet. The first EC2 instance I launched it in a private subnet and I was able to SSH into it directly using the EC2 Instance Connect endpoint. But since now that I'm using an SSH key, I can only launch this EC2 instance in the public subnet, because in order for me to SSH into it using SSH key, if the EC2 instance is in a private subnet, I would have to use a bastion host. So that is why I'm launching this in the public subnet. Then under firewall security group, we are going to select an existing security group. Then here, we are going to select our SSH security group, which is right here. Then that's all we need to do here and click launch instance. So I've launched that EC2 instance and you can see it here. Then to SSH into it, remember what I always do is when you create your key pair will be saved in your downloads directory. But when you try to SSH into your EC2 instance, I'll close PowerShell here and I'll open it again. When you try to SSH into your EC2 instance, when you open your terminal, whether on a Windows computer or a Mac computer, your terminal always opens to your home directory. So if you see, this is the home directory on my computer. When you look on your computer, whatever you see there is your home directory. So to make it convenient for you to SSH into your EC2 instance, what I always do is I always move my key pair into the home directory. Because if you don't move the key pair into the home directory, if you want to SSH into your EC2 instance right now, with your key pair being in the downloads directory, you would have to type SSH-I, then you will have to specify the full path to where your key pair is. And since my key pair is in downloads directory, I would have to get the full path for it. So here I can do copy address as text, and I'm going to paste it here. So that is the full path to where my key pair is, and I will type another slash here and enter the name of my key pair. Since you are going to SSH into your EC2 instance so often, I don't want to type this all the time. So what I always do is, since my terminal always opens to the home directory, all I have to do is copy my key pair from here. You can even cut it. So I'll right click on it and I'm going to cut it. Once I cut it, it is saying my home directory is C user admin. Whether you are on a Windows computer or a Mac computer, it is the same thing. Look here, whatever you see here, that is the directory your home drive is. So here it says my directory is in the C. So I select C here. Users, I'm going to select users, admin. This is the home directory on my computer. So I can paste my key pair in here. Now that I've pasted my key pair in here, then I don't have to specify the full path to the key pair. All I have to do is just specify the name of the key pair, which is test once you start to type the name of a file in that directory, if you press the tab key, it would auto-complete it for you. Then once I've specified my key pair, then I'm going to specify my username. I'm going to specify the username of the EC2 instance, which is EC2-user at, and I'll copy the public IPv4 address of the instance, paste it here. This is the command to SSH into your EC2 instance. Then I'm going to press enter. The first time I try to SSH into an instance, it will ask me this question. I'll type yes and press enter. And there you go. I can also SSH into this EC2 instance. Then let me try to run a command, sudo update -y. Nothing to update. I'll try sudo install. You can see I can also install the packages on my EC2 instance. So now I've confirmed in front of you guys that the CloudFormation template that I provided that will create your VPC with public and private subnets in 2 different availability zones. It will create your security groups, EC2 instance connect endpoint, and an RDS instance for you. But that is up to you. If you don't want to create the RDS instance, you can remove it from your resource. This template is working and you can use it for troubleshooting. If you want to, let's say you have tested everything and you have troubleshooted everything and you want to delete the resources that the CloudFormation template created. Remember, any additional resource you created into the resources that the CloudFormation template created, first you have to remove it. For example, my CloudFormation template created the VPC and I launched an EC2 instance in that VPC. So the first thing I have to do is terminate the EC2 instances that I launched in the VPC. So here I'll select those 2 EC2 instances, select instance state and terminate them. Once you terminate those 2 EC2 instances, then any additional resource, let's say you created application load balancer, auto scaling group in that VPC. You would have to remove those resources first. Then once you remove those resources, then you can go and delete your CloudFormation stack. So I'll wait for the EC2 instance to be terminated, which is terminated here. Then I'll go back to my CloudFormation stack here. On your CloudFormation dashboard, you select the stack. Once you select the stack here, you click delete.
You have to update that security group.
It wouldn't matter, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah. So because I only updated like the rule in there, it won't matter. I don't think it would, but let's see. I don't think it will. But the main thing is delete the resources. But let's say you change a configuration of a resource, like you add extra rule to the security groups. I don't think it will complain when it is deleting it. So here I'll select the stack and I'll click delete, and here I'm going to click delete. So it is now initiate deleting the stack. On that event here, if you refresh, you can see it says delete in progress, and it is now removing the resources. So we'll give it time. You can see it is removing all those resources.
Question of it.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a command line to launch it?
What did you say?
The command line to launch that cloud for that to deploy the stack.
Yeah, you said, do you have the, I'm sorry, your voice is not really clear.
The command line to launch the stack.
Do you have
command line?
Oh, you said,
line.
do you have the command line to run the stack? The CloudFormation doesn't. The benefit of using CloudFormation is you don't need a command line to run it. You can just create your stack. Well, you can run it from the command line, but you don't need to do it for what we are doing. Just launch it from your console. But there's a command line for CloudFormation that you can use to run it. But for this stack, you don't have to do that. I'll prefer you to just do it from the console. Sorry, I couldn't hear you because your voice wasn't too clear. So it is deleting the stack here, and I'll just give it some time. Someone has their hand raised. Adewale, go ahead.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much. Aziz, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. I want to really appreciate your effort in showing this CloudFormation service, how to use it to make our work easy. And just overnight, there was a project I was doing that involved using CloudFormation, and then one of my friends were discussing about it, and I was like, I wish Aziz I had like a course on CloudFormation. And my friend told me, oh no, there's a course on the AWS Note. I'm like, oh, I haven't gotten there because I was, I'm trying to follow the course from the beginning, just like you advised. And I quickly dashed there and went to watch the CloudFormation course you have on the AWS Note, and that was what I did overnight, and I really enjoyed it. And so when you started using the CloudFormation template, I was just beaming with smile, like, oh, this is what I just did overnight, and it's and I just feel like my mind is in the right place, doing the personal project I was doing. And my question is this: I have a question, and I checked the course, and I noticed that nobody has had asked any question, on the platform, and I don't really want to be the first person to ask the question.
Oh no, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So now I feel it's an opportunity to ask you the question. Okay, what I noticed is, on the course you created different stack for VPC, for NAT gateway, and all those stuff. And I noticed that while creating stack, there's an S3 bucket that the AWS automatically creates. Yes. And then when I noticed when you were cleaning up, tearing down all those things, deleting the stack, you didn't mention about that particular S3 bucket. So my question is this: do I have to delete that S3 bucket? Because I went to check and I noticed that the S3 bucket is still lying there, with the YAML template in the S3 bucket. So my question is, do I still need to go there and tear it down myself, like emptying the bucket and deleting the bucket, or AWS will clean it up, for me along the line with time?
Okay, good. That's a good observation. And that's something I actually didn't mention. That is very good. Yes. So when we are creating our CloudFormation stack, we have the option to either upload our template into an S3 bucket or upload it directly from our computer. Even when you upload your template directly from your computer, AWS would still store that template in an S3 bucket. So they will randomly create an S3 bucket and they will store the template in there for you. That is what Adewale is mentioning. So now that I have deleted my CloudFormation stack, well, the RDS instance takes time. So that's why it is probably running into, that's why it is taking time, but it should delete everything without any issue. But if anything fails, it will tell us. So let's assume I've deleted my CloudFormation stack. Now, if I go into the S3 console and select S3 service, you can see all the buckets I have here. The one that says CF templates, that is the S3 bucket that CloudFormation has created, where it would upload all your templates to. So you can see in my account, Adewale, if I select this, you can see that I have a bunch of YAML files in there. Look at it. And if I scroll all the way, let me click on this. You can see it goes far as back as 2022. So to answer your question, when you delete your resources, when you delete your CloudFormation stack, AWS does not delete the S3 bucket for you. And the YAML file and whatever YAML file you use to deploy your stack will still be in that S3 bucket until you go and delete the S3 bucket yourself. So yes, you would have to delete the S3 bucket yourself. But I would say you don't need to delete it, because the next time you run another stack, it is just going to create the S3 bucket again and upload the files in there. And as you guys know, S3 bucket is an affordable service. Even though I have all these files in here from last year, and there are quite a few files in here, 104, I still haven't, AWS has not charged me an S3 fee, because you have to put so much files in your S3 bucket for you to start seeing the cost. That is one of the benefits of S3. And you can see the file size, they are only 9.7 kilobytes. So you will have to put so much of this in your S3 bucket to get charged for it. So that's why I just always leave it in my account. A good reason why you can also leave it is they can serve as backup for you. So let's say you start updating your CloudFormation template, you run into an issue and you got lost in how you ran into that issue and you are unable to recover that file. You can come back into the S3 bucket, look at the last file you used to deploy your stack. You can download it and use that file. So these files could also serve as backups. Even though the name is not clear here, you will just have to try to pinpoint the date you launched the stack and try to and try to go through the file, you can see here it's saying VPC YAML, VPC YAML, VPC YAML. So for me, they serve as backup. That's why I don't delete them. Plus, AWS is not really going to charge you for having YAML files in here. You can see I have 104 and I haven't paid any cost yet. So yeah, that is it. Did I answer your question? Yeah, you would have to delete the bucket yourself. But
Yeah.
I'll say you don't have to worry about deleting it. But if you feel like it's something you need to do, then you can. You don't even have to delete the bucket. You can come in it and empty the bucket, because the next time you run another stack, AWS will create that bucket again. Okay, so yeah, in my CloudFormation console, refresh here, you can see I don't have any stack anymore, and it has deleted all my resources. So I'll send this template to you guys now. Before I send it, I'm going to update here on the security group. On the security group here, I believe they should be it should be this. So I'm going to copy this, paste it. So it should be port 22, TCP port 22, and the source, we are limiting it to our VPC. We are limiting it to our VPC. Yeah, so that's what that is. I may have to do it this way. I think is, but I'll test it before I send it to you guys. So I think it's like this, the same way I did this one. But I'll test it out. I'll test it out before I send it to you guys. But yeah, I want to limit this to SSH instead of all traffic. Then once I test it, I'll send the template to you guys today. That is it for today's demo that I wanted to share with you guys. Does anyone have any question? Titus, go ahead.
Yeah, Aziz, I have a problem with my AWS account. I'm not able to, if I want to create a security group and then limit the traffic to my IP address, it doesn't let me. So I have like 3 root accounts, and it's the same thing on those 3 accounts. So I'm just confused.
How are you guys having that issue? Because you're not the only one having it. I've had like at least 4 people have the same issue this week, but I'm not having that issue in my account. So
and then last time I switched from US East 1 to US East 2, it was working. Today it's not. I go to California, I go to the West, it's not working. I changed the root account to a different root account, same issue. So I'm just confused.
Did you try the same thing that I did, launch instance? Then from here, instead of doing it from the security group page, like do launch instance. Then over here, when you are creating your security group, try this one. When you are creating your security group under networking here, under source here, try to select my IP and see if that works there from the security group page.
Yeah, it will. I will try it this way, but the issue is it lets me select it, but I'm not able to save the role. So at that point, it just gets stuck.
Yeah, so until we figure out that issue, that you might have to contact AWS support. I'm not sure, maybe you have something on your computer that is blocking it. I'm not sure if the issue is on AWS side, because I'm not having that issue. At least I'll test it from the security group page. At least from the EC2, I'm not having it. So the solution that I'm proposing for now is you just need to know what your IP address is, which you can get your IP address this way. Once you get your IP address, copy it, right? Then let's test it now on the VPC page. So I'll go to VPC service and I'm going to create not create VPC. What am I doing? I'm going to scroll down here and select security groups. I'm going to create a security group. I'm going to say tests and test. The VPC does not matter. Inbound route, SSH. So let's try the issue you are having. So if I said source, my IP, so I'm having the same issue too. So there must probably be something in AWS that is causing the issue. So if you are having it, someone else is having it, then that's just an issue with AWS. It's something they will fix, or we can contact support. You can see when I tried it on the EC2 console, it worked. So to get around this, you can just even use custom, right? And just paste your IP address there. It will do the same thing for you. So that my IP is just an easy way AWS is the easy setting AWS put there to generate your IP. But now that this is not working, temporarily, you can just leave it on custom and paste your IP address in there and scroll down and click create security group. And here you can still have SSH, and it is limited to my IP address. So that's how you can get around that.
All right, cool. Thank you.
No problem.
And can I propose how I went around it?
Sure. Sure.
So what I did is, and truly, North Virginia had that problem with me. But when I changed to Ohio, I didn't experience the problem. But I wanted to continue using North Virginia region for my project. So what I did was to create my security group using the source type I used was anywhere. So after creating that, then I went back and edited the security group and limited it to my IP, and it worked.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so this is just AWS probably updated something that broke that setting, but I'm sure they'll fix it the next time they update. Why do I keep the next time they update, the next time they send another update in? So what he said is here, when we create a security group, I'm going to test. I'm just going to type something random there. Select my VPC inbound rule, SSH, and my IP does not work. So he selected anywhere on IPv4, which that works, then create it. Then once you create it, you can now, under inbound rules here, you can see our SSH is set to anywhere for now. Then you can click edit inbound rule. Then when you remove this and here, select my IP, it is not working for me. So
question is this.
Yeah.
Why not type on Google my IP and then take it and paste it there?
I used to do that, but that never works for me. So how do you, I know it's my IP. What's my IP?
Yeah, I think it is my IP. Google, you just type what is my IP? No.
What is my IP? I think every time I do that, it always give me in this format, and this is not what I'm looking for. I don't know if there's like a site.
Type it together. You type what is my IP together. Like you type it
that's it.
together.
That is IPv6. What you are having, I think.
Yeah, but my IP does not. It has to be in the
This is the
It has to be in the CIDR. It has to be in the CIDR format, not in this format. So
well,
that's
you can just type
IPv6.
Excuse me. So what were you saying?
Yeah,
I was saying
type
this. I was saying this is the format of IPv6.
Okay, so how do I get my IPv4?
As you type forward, I'll send a link to the chat. Click on it.
All right, sure. Okay. So the main thing is we're just trying to get our IPv, our CIDR block, right? However way you get it is fine.
Yeah,
so yeah, this is showing me this is what you want. So you can either use this service too. Is in the chat. I'll post it in Slack now so everybody can have access to it. So however you guys choose to get to a solution of something, that is fine. If you guys notice, one thing I always say is I don't always recommend that the way that I do things is like the best way of doing it. Certainly it works, and we try to add security in mind when we do it, but however you get your IP is fine. What Mr. Ronnie said, I used to use this method and it always worked every time I type it in Google until one day it started giving me this. And I'm not trying to like decode all this to find my IP. So I'm looking for something that just gives me what my IP is, which is this. You can copy it here. Then when you create your security group, you just paste it in there. And don't forget to add the /32 at the end.
Yeah, you can cross-check this one to be sure if it is consistent with what you have on the EC2, just to make sure.
Yeah, I think it is. If I go back, where's my VPC? Security groups. The first one I created on my IP is this. And if I Control F, it is.
Perfect. Yeah.
So that website works. You guys can use it too. You can use this website. So does anyone have any question?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I would like to know if I don't know if we have done it before, but I would like to know if you can provide us a line that we can add to our resume for each of our projects. And the second one is if you can set up a session so that we can walk us through how we can document those projects in our GitHub repository.
Oh, okay. I've done that before, but I can show you guys again. I've done that before. Next week, I'll do a demo on it, how you guys can document your project. I even want to, what I'm seeing on LinkedIn now is the reference architecture that everyone is doing that has the connections from one service to another. The lines are animated. I like that. I think it just adds a touch to it. So I've been thinking about how to update all of our reference architecture for the project to those animated reference architecture so that you can upload everything into your GitHub repository.
Yes.
That has that, and your README file would be there. So just to give you guys a quick demo on it, I've already covered it before, but next week I'll do a demo on it. I'll work on it and I'll do a demo on it, but we can just test it out right now. So let's say, let me look for one of our script.
Aziz,
Yes.
yeah, if I can say something, I think you did a demo on that, but I think what he might be asking, or most some of us have in mind, is if it's just like to deploy that static application where your code is that small, it's easy to use ChatGPT for that. But now something like deploying with Terraform modules. So do you have to still copy all your code, or what part of the code do you copy for then to create your README?
So your Terraform module is, you would have to, it is not something where you can just paste all your code in there and tell ChatGPT to write for you. There's going to be work involved, but ChatGPT can certainly help you. It is something you would have to organize yourself. So when we have one simple script, it can write that for us. Then if you have a Terraform module, right? This is how I will start. You just have to play around with it. There isn't like a straightforward one way that will just do everything for you at once. So I'll still use ChatGPT to do it. So I would probably start with
Why do it? Can I say something, Alice?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm coming to what a question that Tetis asked in the past session. It was about deploying with Ansible, deploying with Ansible to different targets. And he was talking about how can we do it easily. I think I have an idea, but I have not yet test it. It is about the share library. The share library. If we use the share library, maybe in the YAML file, we can our playbook we can do it easily.
Yeah. So have you tested it out?
Yeah, I'm about to test it. It's just that I makes you a little bit tired.
Okay.
It's just the idea.
Oh, okay. You can test it out and let me know. But I haven't started working on it, but I'll work on it sometime when I have time, and I'll give you guys my feedback on how to do it. There might be multiple ways to do it. You can have multiple playbooks and run the different playbooks. You can create all your playbooks, right? Then when you run your playbook, you can specify what target server you want that playbook to execute on. At the least, that is like the simplest way I can see how to do it. And how you can group your servers is, like I mentioned, you can group your servers by tags. So when you are running your playbook, you can tell your playbook to run this particular playbook on any servers that have this tag. Or in your inventory file, you can even group your playbook by different names. You can have a name and you can have like a name, let's say HTTP server, and have your IPs under that, and you can have Ubuntu server and have this like a Nginx server or whatever, and have their IPs under it. Then you can run your playbook to execute on those different groups. That's like the simplest way I know how to do it. But I'll test it out and I'll let you guys know whatever I find. But if you get to it before me, also let me know what you find. So again, another thing I want to mention is you guys understand that I will teach you as much stuff as I know, but also I want you guys to know that your knowledge does not end at working on the projects. Understand that when you work on the project here and you complete the project, that's not where you stop. Don't take it as, okay, yes, I've completed this project, I'm done. The projects really are meant to enlighten you, because if you are working on AWS service for the first time and you haven't created a resource before, right? The first time you create it, those projects helps you to create those resources. The projects are just meant to enlighten you. So once you understand, okay, this is how this works, then you are supposed to take it a step further. I've always encouraged you guys, take any of my projects, see how you can improve it. We've done the dynamic website, right? We have the application on it. See how you can improve that reference architecture. Are there any other services you can incorporate into the architecture? Where we are using S3 and we are downloading the file over the internet, do you want to use endpoint rather? Do you want to incorporate CloudFront into the reference architecture? There are certainly other things you can do to improve the reference architecture. So I always encourage you guys, go beyond what you are doing here. What we are doing here is just to cover the foundational knowledge, which is good enough to get a job, but you always have to continue learning. So to create this, I'm trying to translate some of the resources in the repo, VPC. I'll just type VPC module and EC2 module. So this could be like a starting guide, right? So this repository contains Terraform module that defines AWS resources for virtual private cloud, right? Then here it has module VPC, because that is one of the module we created, right? Then this module allows you to test a fully functional VPC. Then you can add your detail in it. You can copy this, type more details, and tell it to edit it for you. Features defined in the VPC, then you can specify VPC with custom CIDR block. And I'm sure now where it wrote this VPC. So it wrote this VPC module, right? It wrote this VPC module. Watch what I can do. I can, where do I have the module on my computer? Okay, just a second. So I'm saying, like, for ChatGPT, you just have to play around with it. It is not, one time is not going to give you the full thing. So let me see something here. I'm going to open. I'm always forgetting every time. Okay, Terraform module here. Okay, this is my VPC module. I'm going to open my main. This is my main.tf for my VPC. I'm going to select it, copy. Then once I copy, I'm going to tell it here. This is my VPC module code, please. So I'm just testing this out and see how this Zoom thing is in the way. So I'm saying this is my VPC module code. Please use it to update the VPC. So here, where it wrote the README for the VPC, I want to update these features. Yeah, I can say, please use it to update the VPC module features, right? And I'll just paste the code down here and I'll run it. So you see now it is rewriting it and it's showing you how to use it. So you see, it just rewrote the VPC based on my code. And that's pretty much, you just follow the same process for all the modules you write. And that's how you get your README file for the repository. So basically in your repository where you store the code, the main important thing is the README file. So when someone looks in it, I think when your potential employer, if they happen to click on your repository link to go in there, they are not going to read it in detail. The only person that will read this in detail is someone that is trying to use your module. But at the least, when they go in there and you have an organized README file that explains everything in details, it looks professional. So here, based on my main.tf code, you can see here is telling me it's going to create a VPC with custom CIDR block and defined and default instance tenancy. Then it is enabling DNS host name in the VPC. It is setting up the entire gateway, getting the availability zones, creating 2 public subnets, right, in each availability zone, right, and define the route table, assigning the subnets to the route table, then creating 2 sets of private subnet, and is even defining it here. So I think this is good enough for a README file. Then the same thing you did here, you can do it for the NAT gateway. So let's say this is my VPC, right, and I want to do the same thing for the NAT gateway. I can just come here. This is my NAT gateway code. I'm going to open it, select everything, copy it, going to minimize here. This is my NAT gateway code. So I'm just going to tell it do the same as what you did, same as the VPC. I'm just going to tell you to do the same thing as the VPC. So you can see it wrote a definition for the NAT gateway, right? And add the feature of what it is doing, and it is showing you how to reference the NAT gateway in your project. And for every resource you have in your module, you can continue doing the same thing for them. And that's how you'll be able to update all your README file. So it's not going to be
very long.
Hmm?
The README will be very long.
It's up to you how long you want to make it. So you can either have a README that explains. And so when I use ChatGPT, this is what I do. I always type out what I want, like what I'm trying to say. Obviously, I'm not the best writer in the world. So I always just still type out what I'm trying to do, detail. And once I type it out, then I'll paste it in ChatGPT and I'll tell it to refine it for me. And that's how I always come up with most of the things that I do. And another trick you guys can use, if what you have to type is long, you can do this. This is like another shortcut that I always use, Microsoft Word, right? You can open Microsoft Word document and you can enable this voice thing. Then you can start speaking in it. Then it will, I think it's because I'm on Zoom right now. See, it's working now. So anything you say, it will just type it out for you. And you can say as much thing as you want to say. Once you are done telling it what you want to do, right, then I'm going to copy this. Oh, I should have stopped it. I'm going to just backspace here. So this is what I said. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come here and I'll just say rewrite. Okay, and it will rewrite it for you. So there's just different ways you can do things. So it's not just going to be one thing where ChatGPT will just do it, but you can tell it what you want to do in steps and it's going to do it. But your README file for your module don't have to be long. You can have just a brief summary of how it works and how to use it and the type of projects, the type of application you deployed in it. So it just depends on how you want to do it. That is pretty much it for today's class. I will stay behind if anyone have any question. And once I update that, once I update the CloudFormation template, I'll send it to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Just one question again, and I would like to see you after the class privately.
Sure.
I was doing the dynamic project, okay? I noticed that we have two projects there, the ones you did. In one of the projects, you used, what was this again? The pen key, and then used PowerShell to install the website on the setup server. And then on the other project, you use PPK, that's the key pair, PPK format, and we use PuTTY to install the website on the setup server. Does it mean that if you're using PPK, you must use PuTTY?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So PuTTY only works on a Windows computer, and the file format for PuTTY is PPK.
Okay.
Then on a Windows computer, if you want to use PowerShell, you use PEM.
Okay.
And on a Mac computer, if you want to SSH on a Mac computer, you use PEM.
Okay.
So the only time you use PPK is if you are using PuTTY, and PuTTY only works on a Windows computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much.
No problem. Yeah, so when I was doing the project, part of it is I'm using different method again, just to show you guys different ways of doing things.
Okay.
And sometimes even when I started working on the project, I started using I started learning how to SSH into an EC2 instance using PuTTY.
Okay.
Then as I started working in the field and I saw that no one was really using PuTTY, most people use their terminal, like PowerShell. Then when I learned PowerShell, that was why I added that PowerShell one into the project. So, but it's up to you. Any method you use is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Okay. Thank you guys. I would see you guys next week and talk to you throughout the week. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Hello, Aziz.
Yes, hello.
Oh, sorry. I'm kind of driving. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
That's not where you stop. Don't take it as, okay, yes, I've completed this project, I'm done. The projects really are meant to enlighten you, because if you are working on AWS service for the first time and you haven't created a resource before, right? The first time you create it, those projects helps you to create those resources. The projects are just meant to enlighten you. So once you understand, okay, this is how this works, then you are supposed to take it a step further. I've always encouraged you guys, take any of my project, see how you can improve it. We've done the dynamic website, right? We have the application on it. See how you can improve that reference architecture. Are there any other services you can incorporate into the architecture? Where we are using S3 and we are downloading the file over the internet, do you want to incorporate CloudFront into the reference architecture? There are certainly other things you can do to improve the reference architecture. So I always encourage you guys, go beyond what you are doing here. What we are doing here is just to cover the foundational knowledge which is good enough to get a job, but you always have to continue learning. So to create this, I'm trying to translate some of the resources in the repo, VPC. I'll just type VPC module and EC2 module. Read. So this could be like a starting guide, right? So this repository contains Terraform module that defines AWS resources for virtual private cloud, right? Then here it has module VPC, because that is one of the module we created, right? Then this module allows you to test a fully functional VPC. Then you can add your detail in it. You can copy this, type more details, and tell it to edit it for you. Features defined in the VPC, then you can specify VPC with custom CIDR block. And I'm sure now where it wrote this VPC module, watch what I can do. Where do I have the module on my computer? So I'm saying, like, for ChatGPT, you just have to play around with it. It is not, one time is not going to give you the full thing. So let me see something here. I'm going to open. I'm always forgetting every time. Okay, Terraform module here. Okay, this is my VPC module. I'm going to open my main. This is my main.tf for my VPC. I'm going to select it, copy. Then once I copy, I'm going to tell it here. This is my VPC module code, please. So I'm just testing this out and see how this Zoom thing is in the way. So I'm saying this is my VPC module code. Please use it to update the VPC. So here, where it wrote the README for the VPC, I want to update these features. Yeah, I can say, please use it to update the VPC module features, right? And I'll just paste the code down here and I'll run it. So you see now it is rewriting it and it's showing you how to use it. So you see, it just rewrote the VPC based on my code. And that's pretty much, you just follow the same process for all the modules you write. And that's how you get your README file for the repository. So basically in your repository where you store the code, the main important thing is the README file. So when someone looks in it, I think when your potential employer, if they happen to click on your repository link to go in there, they are not going to read it in detail. The only person that will read this in detail is someone that is trying to use your module. But at the least, when they go in there and you have an organized README file that explains everything in details, it looks professional. So here, based on my main.tf code, you can see here is telling me it's going to create a VPC with custom CIDR block and default instance tenancy. Then it is enabling DNS hostname in the VPC. It is setting up the entire gateway, getting the availability zones, creating 2 public subnets, right, in each availability zone, right, and define the route table, assigning the subnets to the route table, then creating 2 sets of private subnet, and is even defining it here. So I think this is good enough for a README file. Then the same thing you did here, you can do it for the NAT gateway. So let's say this is my VPC, right? And I want to do the same thing for the NAT gateway. I can just come here. This is my NAT gateway code. I'm going to open it, select everything, copy it, going to minimize here. This is my NAT gateway code. So I'm just going to tell it, do the same as what you did, same as the VPC. I'm just going to tell you to do the same thing as the VPC. So you can see it wrote a definition for the NAT gateway, right? And add the feature of what it is doing, and it is showing you how to reference the NAT gateway in your project. And for every resource you have in your module, you can continue doing the same thing for them. And that's how you'll be able to update all your README file. So it's not going to
be very long. The README will be very long.
It's up to you how long you want to make it. So when I use ChatGPT, this is what I do. I always type out what I want, like what I'm trying to say. Obviously, I'm not the best writer in the world. So I always just still type out what I'm trying to do, detail. And once I type it out, then I'll paste it in ChatGPT and I'll tell it to refine it for me. And that's how I always come up with most of the things that I do. And another trick you guys can use, if what you have to type is long, you can do this. This is like another shortcut that I always use, Microsoft Word, right? You can open Microsoft Word document and you can enable this voice thing. then you can start speaking in it. Then it will, I think it's because I'm on Zoom right now. See, it's working now. So anything you say, they will just type it out for you. And you can say as much thing as you want to say. Once you are done telling it what you want to do, right, then I'm going to copy this. Oh, I should have stopped it. I'm going to just backspace here. So this is what I said. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come here and I'll just say rewrite. Okay, and it will rewrite it for you. So there's just different ways you can do things. So it's not just going to be one thing where ChatGPT will just do it, but you can tell it what you want to do in steps and it's going to do it. But your README file for your module don't have to be long. You can have just a brief summary of how it works and how to use it and the type of projects, the type of application you deployed in it. So it just depends on how you want to do it. That is pretty much it for today's class. I will stay behind if anyone have any question. Once I update the CloudFormation template, I'll send it to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Just one question again, and I would like to see you after the class privately.
Sure.
I was doing the dynamic project, okay? I noticed that we have two projects there, the ones you did. In one of the projects, you used, what was this again? The pen key, and then used PowerShell to install the website on the setup server. And then on the other project, you use PPK, that's the key pair, PPK format, and we use POTI to install the website on the setup server. Does it mean that if you're using PPK, you must use POTI?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So POTI only works on a Windows computer, and the file format for POTI is PPK.
Okay.
Then on a Windows computer, if you want to use PowerShell, you use PEM.
Okay.
And on a Mac computer, if you want to SSH on a Mac computer, you use PEM.
Okay.
So the only time you use PPK is if you are using POTI, and POTI only works on a Windows computer.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much.
No problem. Yeah, so when I was doing the project, part of it is I'm using different method again, just to show you guys different ways of doing things.
Okay.
And sometimes, even when I started working on the project, I started learning how to SSH into an EC2 instance using POTI.
Okay.
Then as I started working in the field and I saw that no one was really using POTI, most people use their terminal, like PowerShell. Then when I learned PowerShell, that was why I added that PowerShell one into the project. So, but it's up to you. Any method you use is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Okay. Thank you guys. I would see you guys next week and talk to you throughout the week. Have a good weekend. Bye.